All right, D. Let's crack on just because you know there's an impending wave on its way to San Andreas, so I want to make sure you get your time. I'm gonna lob one in here for you, brother. Tell me why you want to be the chief of police.
Why do I, well, I suppose, why do I want to be chief of police? I would start by
Are you
saying
yelling?
Here, speak
no,
up if you
but
don't mind, D.
I
There
can
you go.
speak with my
Yeah, yeah.
chest for you. Is that better?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
So I would start by saying, like, what do I think makes a good chief of police before I answer that, right?
you.
If that's okay.
Please.
So, like, on the phone, you ask, does a chief of police need to be a good police officer, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that got me thinking, what actually makes a good chief? You know, genuinely, like, what makes a good police? What makes a good chief of police? Is it those? Is it a super cop? You know, is it someone who can drive real fast, shoot real straight, fly a helicopter, do 20,000 backflips, and then spin out the door and place some cuffs on some motherfucker? And then it got me thinking, okay, that's the like some people's obvious choice, right? They want to all singing, all dancing, all running like an action hero chief of police, right? And then I thought, normally those types of police officers don't do the other kind of shit that's important equally, right? They ain't going to sit there and think about legislation. They're not going to do the paperwork, really. They're probably not going to be doing much mentorship or even just frankly leadership, right? Because they're too busy caught being the, for want of a better phrase, the main character.
Yeah.
And it got me to believe that I think what makes a good chief of police, in my opinion, is somebody who understands the police context, but also has the ability to take in the rest of the context within the city, right? And I think I have that. Most police officers in this city are just that, and have only been that their whole life, at least in this city. I don't know if you know my history, you guys, but I come from a coloured background, should we say? I was I used to sell weed for the manor. I was in the ballers. I've been a crim on my own, doing solo petty shit. I was a pure mechanic for a while as well, so I lived that civilian life as well. And now I'm a police officer. So I think I've got more context than most. In fact, I would go as far as saying I've lived more context than pretty much any other police officer I've ever met. Which I think I would want a chief of police to have, is understanding of the actual cogs of the city, right? Yes, there's a role within the police for the chief of police. Obviously, it's the chief of the fucking police. But also, I think the role of the chief of police also is broader than that. And I think the person needs to have a broader perspective of that. So the reason why I want to be a chief of police is because I think I meet what I believe makes a good chief of police.
Great answer, D. Sorry, taking notes. I'm going to follow that up with another one. Let's say you do become the chief of police. What are your top 3 priorities? And I want you to tie this back to issues that you perceive in the LSPD now.
Absolutely. So I'm talking about myself not because I'm egotistical. Obviously, I'm here as an interview, so I'm gonna make about me a little bit. So
100%.
So ultimately, right, I've been a police officer for about a year now. Not as long as some, but still a fucking length of time. I'd say 10 months of those I was doing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So we're talking a lot of time. And I am a TRT operator. I'm a member of the pursuit unit. I'm an FTO. I'm first aid trained rifleist, all these stuff, right? Now, I never got any of those easily. Some people, after 2 weeks of being a full officer, they're a pursuit driver, they're a kitten. Some people say they want to be in TRT and they're just giving it, right? Absolutely giving it. Everything I've got, I've had to fucking earn, right? Now, I'm not here moaning about that. I actually think there needs to be more of that. I actually think everyone should have to earn everything that they've got, right? So when I walk through the halls and I hear people saying, "What's D done for TRT? Why is D TRT?" And I've heard people say that, right? I say to them, it's this it's this on my chest, right? If anyone's got anything to say to me, I led the first ever capture of the escaped lifer, the first ever escaped lifer. I led the catch and got about 20 officers a Medal of Valor through my leadership. Fast thinking, right? And I've earned it. And what I want to change is that I want people to have to earn what they've got and not be given it because they're friends of someone or they know someone or they know how to make the right person laugh or they're always riding with that right person. Now, that's not me saying I want to gatekeep things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want to put more of an onus on people actually taking the time. So if you're a leader of a cert, I want to see you teaching people that cert. I don't want to see you just giving people the cert. I want to know what you're doing to get them there. So fix favoritism, drive the certs to be more training and mentoring based. And then secondly, this is just my opinion, I would want to hold command and high command to higher regard. I think quite often, things that they do, if I was to do, I get dapped, I would get in trouble. Now, I'm not saying I shouldn't get dapped. What I'm saying is they should also get dapped, right? What I'm saying is I want to strike away favoritism and nepotism and keep it fair and try and get people to actually get into the idea of mentoring and training. And I would do that via command and driving the certs to actually start doing stuff, actually teaching.
Do you mind if I ask the question, Michael?
Did you have a number 3, D?
Sorry.
A number 3. They're the top 2 priorities. I guess third. Actually, yeah, I do.
Please.
This is going to be maybe a controversial one, but I think it's, for me, an important one. I need the police to know when to be aggressive and when not to be. And by that, I mean, we flip-flop either way. We're either not aggressive enough or we're too aggressive, so we get it wrong quite often, in my opinion. And us being too soft in many circumstances, leads to things escalating. Can I speak freely? I'm allowed to speak freely,
Of course.
right?
Please.
So the other day there was a situation with a gang. I won't give names and whatnot. Running police officers over and stuff like that. And instead of opening fire after giving appropriate warnings or beating down, we just fanny around, and then eventually they land a helicopter on a roof above us and gun us all down. And it's just like, it's actually dangerous to extend these situations. Not only for our lives matter and their lives matter, right? So do civilian lives matter. But also just the damage that they do to the city by behaving like this, smashing through, the longer pursuits go on, the more damage that happens to the city, which is more damage to the taxpayer and ultimately more injuries that can happen to civilians. So I believe spending a lot of time getting the police knowing the appropriate level of aggression for the appropriate situation.
Junior, before you ask a question, I'd like to share a story, if you don't mind. D, I hope you don't mind. This is kind of something that you and I shared together, D. D's actually the first officer I went on a ride along with. And it wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple weeks ago. And we were driving. And 2 things happened that were very interesting. D and I happened upon a street race. And in that moment, D recognized that something unlawful was about to happen. But he also recognized that he was one officer. And he did not have any backup. And D read the room very well. He effectively said, there's nothing I can do here, but he's still going to tell them to not race and not break the law. We ended up getting into a chase that day, and a much higher priority situation arose. But throughout the chase, D was very, very cognizant to not put the public at greater risk. He drove on the right side of the road despite being in a chase. He drove at a manageable rate of speed, and when a higher priority call came along, he notified the individual that he had to break off. It was a testament to what he just said in terms of retraining on when to be aggressive and not aggressive. So to my point, D absolutely practices what he preaches. Go ahead, Junior. I just wanted to share that story.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
You touched a little bit on mentorship in one of your answers, right, D? And I know you spoke to me in the past recently about how much someone like Maxwell has done for you.
Mhm.
How do you feel the relationship will change if you are to be chief of police, and how you're going to deal with, I suppose, working alongside some of these people who, you looked up to a certain degree?
Um, I'm going to assume all you guys know who Den Shiesty is in the room. Is there anyone who
Of
doesn't know who
course.
Den Shiesty is?
Hugh, you might not know
Me,
Den.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know.
Uh,
I know the Den Act. I've heard of them.
Okay. Well, Hugh, to give you some kind of context, quite often I get called the Wish Den Shiesty. It's an absolute fucking travesty, but they do call me that. Den Shiesty is the reason I'm a cop, right? Without him, I wouldn't have got an interview. Now, Maxwell's the reason I'm still a cop, but Denley's the reason I got to be a cop, right? Now, Den Shiesty, and I don't mind sharing this with you guys, is an absolute fucking hero. Anyway, he did some shit. He got fired. He came back as a PPO. Yeah, wasn't a member of TRT. Therefore, I was his boss. I was his superior. I don't believe rank is obviously rank's important, but mentorship and guardianship happens both ways, right? Obviously, Maxwell's got many more years as an officer than me, right? So I might be her boss, but that doesn't mean she still can't mentor me, right? And I can't learn from her. Ultimately, yes, I have the decision, but she can still have and I'll keep it a buck 100. I'll be leaning on lots of officers, right? There's lots and lots of very experienced officers. I would absolutely be out of my mind not to take their experience and their advice into my consideration when making a decision. But that's how I'd approach a junior is, one, treat them as such, respectfully, but ultimately make it very clear that where I believe I have a duty to listen to you and have an outcome, I also have the right to make the decision I want to make, right?
Junior, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a really good answer.
I'll hit him with my question. All right. So I asked everybody this. Okay. I'm a new lawyer in the city, and most of my cases they usually deal with rights violations, unfortunately here. And the biggest part to me, okay, it's not the rights of what took place. It's that the civilians or the criminals that I'm standing up for here, they feel that the police just will not take any accountability, and
Oh,
I'll
this is
I'll, I'll try
perfect
to
for me. This is
explain to them
perfect
like
for me.
they're not all bad, but at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is they they would rather sue y'all for $50 million because they know currently that there's you guys just don't want to take accountability. And I'm saying y'all as in general, but how would you change that if you were made chief of police?
Yeah, that's a funny one because one of the things I mentioned I want to address, right? This idea of favoritism and people getting different treatment to others. Hugh, I'm a massive believer in accountability, huge believer in accountability. And I quite often, if I hear a complaint and it sounds like a heat of the moment thing, I quite often will not quite often, every time we'll wait for them to calm down and make sure they understand the right ways they can go about escalating and making sure they make the report. But I want to share a story with you, two stories just briefly to try and hopefully give you a view of my view on accountability because I think it's important, if that's okay.
Please, yeah, please.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys are aware of what happened between me and Future. There was a situation where I was leading a warrant apprehension of, I won't say the individual's name. Anyway, we managed to capture him. Mr. Hendricks, I'm talking about this because it's public knowledge. He sued us for it, whatever. Pulls onto the scene as people do. I gave him. He was warned many times. If he doesn't get out of the area, he'll be arrested. Blah 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 blah. I thought I had my taser out. I didn't. Told him I was going to tase him. Ended up shooting him with my heavy pistol. Now, lots of people tried to sweep that stuff under the carpet. First thing I did, call myself out for it, hand over scene leadership to the most senior officer that was on duty because that was on the scene, because at that point I don't believe I should be leading a scene where something like that's happened, especially when I've made the mistake. The only thing that I did do within the scene was ensure that the evidence was collected to make sure that if Future wanted to, he absolutely could hold me accountable, and so he should. The second thing I did was it was Romello at the time, who at the time I think was a sergeant, but he's also shift 2 lead of TRT, so he's my superior within the PD, but also within the force. Pulled him to one side, explained what happened, and then we pulled in LSPD leadership so that I could explain to them, and it ended up with me getting DAPT and other various disciplinary actions. But I think it's really important. I'm all about accountability, including myself. I hold myself accountable every day, all day. And then the second story I wanted to share was from, I'm not sure how much details I can share, so it's going to be very vague, so apologies, because I don't want to obviously cross the line I shouldn't.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, no.
There was a situation where some people were injured, suspects were injured, and they were refusing medical, right? Refusing medical. They were on the floor, bleeding, severely hurt, refusing medical. EMS came up, they were still refusing medical. And I was trying to convince, and again, I won't say names because I don't want to come across like this is a bitch in first, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about trying to improve. The command and high command that was on scene, what I was saying to them was, I almost don't care about their rights at this point. I care about their life. If they sue us afterwards, so be it. But they're on the floor dying right now. Let's get the medical attention, because that's what fucking matters, is their life is what matters over us being sued, and we'll deal with the consequences afterwards. And I was told no and shut down. And we ended up having to do that about 20 minutes after I made that decision, but I was shut down. And I find it frustrating that we were more worried about being sued and being held accountable than saving people's fucking lives. And
That's why the civilians feel like that, yeah.
And if I would have been chief of police and found that happened, heads would have been fucking, and I'm sorry for swearing, but heads would have been fucking rolling.
I think those are two good examples, though, of taking accountability.
I think it says a lot about who D is as a person.
I agree.
That's great, D. Any more questions from the floor? Otherwise, I'm going to move on with my interview script here. We only have about 11 minutes left.
I'm so hot in this room, guys. Holy fuck.
D, what's your biggest strength and biggest weakness?
I often believe, well, no, I say they're normally the same thing for most people. What makes you so good also is normally your weakness, right?
Mm-hmm.
My greatest strength, I think I'm a bit like water, as cheesy as that sounds. And if you don't get what I mean by that, water tends to find a level, right? You put it in any container, it tends to find a level. I think I'm pretty good at that. I don't, and by that I mean I try not to be overbearing. I try not to always lead everything that needs leading. You know, I try and find a good level that involves people, also allows me to set the tone and energy match correctly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that's a weakness is sometimes obviously you can get that wrong, and people can take advantage of, you think you're matching their energy, and actually they're not even showing you their real energy, you know what I mean?
Mm. Like that. Thank you.
Do you have
I have a
a
question.
bit of... Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Finley, please. Yeah. Please.
I was just gonna say, like, being a formal, respectfully, like a criminal now, or
Mhm.
I'm sorry, is that where you were? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I was in a gang. Yeah.
And now turned cop. You know, do you think that not only do you like understand the other side, but like you have like a good rapport with the other side? You know, like where do you think you stand with the community? I guess.
That would be. I would say I'm a bit of a divisive character, if I'm honest. I think, depending on the person you ask on the day, it would depend on their recent interaction with me. So one thing, again, I'm really honest. I won't give you an answer I think you want. I'll give you the answer I believe in. Right? If criminals are trying to bully my officers, I will absolutely match their energy and show them what force really is. But if someone's behaving in a way that doesn't need that, then I don't, right? So if you used to go and speak to certain people, they would have varying opinions, because I suppose the way I would answer it is that I don't take their shit and I don't take it lightly.
Okay.
Dee, you got a bit of a leg up because you and I have actually talked about this recently, but you and I have spoke about the culture in the LSPD and some of the perceived issues, and you've mentioned some of those, right? Like favoritism, uh, glass ceilings, so on and so forth. What do you do to shift the culture, right? And I want to remind you uh, that the last time we talked about this, we talked about how culture very much is top down, right? You set the tone,
Yep.
and that culture trickles down. So tell us.
Um, how would I change? So again, I do believe I agree. I totally agree. Actually, culture comes from the top down. I think otherwise it just doesn't fucking work, right? It would be for me. It would be about how I set the command structure up to start with, and the way that I would describe that is, I almost view culture as vines, right? And the command structure is meant to be the trellis that the vines grow up, right? And me as the chief, and I may be stretching this analogy a little bit far. I'm the gardener, right? I've got to make sure the soil's got the right acid level, the right amount of moisture and water, and I don't know what food plants eat, but plant food, you know. And,
Depends. Nitrogen,
see,
usually phosphorus.
why do you know that? Okay, so
I'll send you pictures of my garden later.
okay.
He's a gardener. He's a
Oh,
farmer.
okay. Green thumbs. Okay, so that's my point, right? My job as the chief is to set the trellis up, plant the seeds, and then nurture them, right? So the way that I'd go about it is selecting the right people in command to nurture Sorry, I'm getting tied up in my
In your own analogy, yeah, you're doing great.
to nurture the fuck. What are we talking about? I ever got lost in this.
Plants. Nurture the
No,
plants, the
yeah,
vines, right?
Yeah, but the culture. Don't forget that
Ah.
word. Yeah, so I would put in place a command structure that is 100% brought into the culture that I wanted to bring. So in my mind, it would probably need a lot of people moving and shoving around. Not necessarily people removing out of command, because there are some really good command members, really, really solid members. There are also some that are, maybe not so good and could probably best served in a different role.
Okay, I have one more that I want to throw out before I open it to the floor, just because I've asked everyone. Dee, I want you to imagine that the island of San Andreas has been overrun by very, very slow-moving zombies that are stupid. So not the kind that could sprint or anything like that. What's your weapon of choice and why?
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
That's the easiest question ever. An axe, like not a fireman's axe though, like a traditional lumberjack axe that's got a blunt end on the other end. You know.
Ah.
The reason being, one, they're not fast moving, so I can just easily chop their heads off. I ain't got to worry about it like breaking. It's a fucking old school axe, so it's not gonna break on a zombie, right? I can just sharpen it to reuse it. I can also use it to make firewood and chop things down. I can use it as a hammer. And if all things go loose, I've got a fucking handle that I've got left, right? And I can also use that. So it's a lot. It's very durable. It can be used in many situations. And it's just very reliable. No chance of it failing. Yeah, solid.
It's a very resourceful answer. Okay, let's open it up to the floor for the last 5 minutes of Dee's interview here.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to pick on you and Junior a little bit as you're the mayors of both county, right?
Please.
So I'll ask you first, if you don't mind, Razan and Junior, if you feel like you can answer, please feel free, okay? What do you believe makes a good chief of police?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm going to be honest. You're one of the few officers who kind of got why I asked that question, right? It was meant to make people think. And I'll be honest, I think your assessment of what makes a good person or a person a good chief of police is actually pretty accurate, right? A lot of people think just because you're good at accounting and you work in a bank, you'd be a great bank manager. But as you move up the organizational chart, responsibilities change, right? So while understanding the basics of policing is important. Being the chief is 90% politics and HR
Yeah.
and maybe 10% policing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, I think understanding people and being able to read situations from moment to moment is what makes someone a good leader, right? Or at least that's a big component. I could take up the whole time, so I want to give Junior a chance to speak here. What
I
do you
don't
think?
think I don't think I can really add on too much to that. The main thing with me, I think, I'm really happy at the spot BCSO's in at the moment,
Hmm.
and the biggest thing I spoke to you previously about this. Steve, like I didn't know I was gonna pick Frost when he was sheriff, right? It was just he came along and every single answer he gave, I understood where he was coming from, and there was not one thing I could go, that wasn't 110% answered correctly, if you get what I mean, or like I didn't quite like how I answered it.
Hmm.
The I think it's an interesting one on how to answer that question, mate. And I don't know whether I've got the perfect answer for you because I don't think the perfect candidate exists, but it's very much so on Michael and his cabinet to choose who the best man for the job is.
I kind of want to tack on to that. Who would make the best chief of police in Los Santos is not necessarily who would make the best chief of police in Blaine County. And who would
Absolutely.
make the best chief of police today may not be who would be the best chief of police 3 months from now. So my point there is that I, as a leader, have to look at the LSPD and go, what is the biggest problem at the LSPD and who is best equipped to tackle that problem, right? And that's going to be on me and the panel of attendees here to decide. But perhaps another component of leadership, D, is adaptability, right? Being able to change as the organization around you changes. That's important.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess given the time, I just wanted to, if you don't mind, just make a
Please.
bit of a thank you statement to you guys. Thanks for listening to me, hearing me out. Thanks for the questions that you asked me. And I'm a big believer in feedback. I really am. So if either of you, any of you, have any feedback for me, please, you don't have to text me or call me. I'm more than happy to meet you anywhere. You can give me feedback, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can text or call me. I would appreciate any sort of feedback. Doesn't matter how little or small, because I believe feedback is important, especially when trying to, be some form of leader.
Improve. Yeah.
Thank you for your time, D.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
D, I'm going to say this. Hopefully, the wave doesn't hit us. But one thing I will promise you is no matter what happens from here, you are going to have opportunity.
I appreciate
That's really
that,
the
sir.
goal of all of this, right?
God